Chapter 4. I don't remember what happened after I blacked out, but I came to when someone dropped me down next to a small crackling fire inside a cave.
You are safe. Rest.
The sexy, Australian-accented cat-like woman spoke next to my ear.
What have you brought us, Sheila?
Another woman's voice asked from elsewhere in the cave, and I heard a clicking sound move toward me.
A man? Ugh. Is that the best you could find today? I'd rather have some meat.
The new woman's voice was beyond disappointed, and I tried to crack my heavy eyelids open so I could see her. The firelight hurt my eyes, though, and I had to close them again.
He is a man, yes, Trell,
said the woman who saved me, and I now knew her name as Sheila. The woman I figured was named Trell made more clicking sounds.
Ugh, and you know men are useless. Each and every one I've met is a complete waste of space and oxygen. They are slaves to their penises. No, that's horrible. We can't have slaves around our hearth.
A bubbly female voice interrupted the other two from another part of the cave. Trell's voice huffed.
Ugh, I didn't intend it literally. I mean they are useless and must be told what to do all the time. They are worse than children, are only good for— Oh, I see. Well, this one's in uniform. He can protect us.
The bubbly woman replied.
If Sheila had to drag him—
Trell tried to say.
Enough for now.
Sheila countered.
I followed him for a few hours. He is not skilled in survival, but this world is harsh, and we need all the help we can get.
After more clicking noises and the complaining, the one named Trell spoke again.
I'm telling you now, the best thing to do with this man is to kill and eat him. Yuck, you are so gross.
The third voice replied. Eat me? Where am I said, though it was little more than a whisper.
Did he speak?
The upbeat woman asked with surprise. Yeah, I spoke. Why would you eat me? I said with a stronger voice. I was still tired from my journey, the restless night, and the sharp bursts of fear each time I thought I heard those feathered dinosaurs chirp, but the drink of lake water seemed to have brought me back from the edge of delirium. My tunnel vision was gone, and I could think straight again. I pushed myself off my stomach, rolled to my side, and made it into a half-kneeling crouch. The fire was inside a ring of big rocks, and a large clay pot sat next to a modest bloom of flames. The aroma reminded me of my mom pulling a big turkey out of the oven on Thanksgiving, and my empty stomach grumbled to remind me the food gauge was on empty. My eyes adjusted to the low light of the cave and the jagged gray rock all around us. We were in a chamber about the size of my parents' 3-car garage, the smallish exit across the rough floor to my right, and the fire to my left provided enough light to finally see my rescuer. I thanked God she wasn't a figment of my water-deprived imagination.
Trell is joking. It is nice to see you awake. I'm called Sheila. Here, drink some water before you answer our questions.
The feline woman nodded as she crouched, dipped a little clay cup into a pot, and then handed it to me. I downed it in several massive gulps and felt a bit disappointed it was only half full. She was just as gorgeous as when I first encountered her, like a fitness trainer and Amazon warrior rolled into one package while wearing a torn bikini. My eyes peeked down the taut muscles and firm curves of her amazing body, but I didn't want to start drooling, so I willed them up to her face so that I could study her alien perfection. Her blonde hair fell to the side of her head and playfully obscured her left cat-looking eye. She wore my hat on her head, and I forced myself to focus on it, since my eyes kept trying to check out her body again. Damn. I'd seen plenty of beautiful women during my short life in Southern California, but Sheila was making my head spin. Or maybe it was because of the dehydration? You are, wearing my hat, I said. I was quite attached to the wide-brimmed leather hat, but she did look damn good wearing it. Nope, it wasn't the dehydration that was causing my head to spin. she looked amazing wearing anything. Or nothing.
It will not stay on your head as we walked back to camp, so I put it on my own for safekeeping,
She said unapologetically, but she didn't move to return it. Every ounce of me wanted to say Sheila could wear it forever. But she soon realized that I wanted it back, so the furry woman took it off her blonde head and handed it to me. Her hair left a scent on the leather, and I was able to smell it when I put the hat back on. Sheila stood up, shook her long mane of blonde hair, and then ran her clawed fingers down its length. The movement probably wasn't meant to be sensual, but it reminded me way too much of the videos I had seen of models standing in the shower. I stood and appreciated that Sheila was a bit taller than me, just like a true Amazonian warrior. I looked away and searched the shadows of the cave for the other women I had heard speak. Do you 3 girls live here?
You think we're girls? Ugh, you're such an idiot.
Trell's angry voice echoed from just behind Sheila as if she'd been waiting for her important moment. She then stepped out from behind the feline woman, and any notion of the word girl vanished in the light of the fire. Her face was heavenly, but there was also something more sinister in her features. Her black eyes seemed to burn red as they sat under regal, arched eyebrows. The sharp points of her ears probed from her lustrous black locks, and her red lips were dark and inviting at the same time. Her neck was tall and thin like a runway model's, caressed by black hair on both sides, and a hefty choker necklace of polished black stones pressed against her marble white skin. Large black hoop earrings hung from her ears, and I saw that the bands of dark stone were highlighted by thinly spun webs of glittering gold metal. She wore a white silk dress with accents of metallic gold that might have come from the treasury of an Egyptian princess. It hung from thin strands over her shoulders and flowed down to her feet. In many places the fabric clung to her skin as if it were painted on, and the sweat of her body soaked through until it was practically see-through. The neckline plunged way down below her cleavage and highlighted every detail of her pert breasts. A narrow band of gold looped around her flat stomach, and the glittering accessory drew my attention to her Victoria's Secret's angel model hip-to-waist ratio. Her airy dress hung off her body below her hips, but the silk fabric was sheer, and I was able to see her long legs flow down to perfect calves and little gold-encrusted sandals wrapped around high-arched feet. The dark-haired woman laughed as she took a final step into the light.
I am a woman. I have hundreds of thousands of males on my planet begging for the chance to inseminate me. Don't you see this delightful body?
Trell asked as she ran her hands down the sides of her stomach, hips, and thighs. Her fingers were unusually long, thin, and black. They almost looked like they were just bones, but it had to be the light doing weird things.
You called us girls. Perhaps we should address you as boy. Would you prefer that?
I stood about a head taller, so my line of sight went right to the beads of glistening sweat gathered in her cleavage. Her hands were now on her hips, as if she were losing her patience with me. Something was definitely off about her fingers, but I was distracted by the rest of her body and couldn't really figure out where I should keep my eyes so that I didn't offend the strikingly beautiful woman. I swallowed hard, thankful for once I wasn't dying of thirst. My heart pounded fiercely, and my profuse sweating wasn't just because it was hot and muggy. I was about to reply when I finally looked behind her. Oh my fucking God. Trell had wings. They were dark in color, and the dim light from the fire wasn't letting me see all their details, but it looked as if they folded behind her back like the wings of a succubus. Earlier she mentioned slaves and killing me, which sounded like something a demon from hell would say. At least those from my video games. No wonder she oozed sexuality.
No words. That is a typical male response when I flaunt my perfection.
Trell's voice was haughty, and I knew my face was red from embarrassment and a newfound fear. She spread her wings wide apart to display what they really were, and I let out a gasp of shock. What I thought was a wing was actually 3 legs folded neatly behind her. My jaw dangled in awe and fear as it became clear she was some kind of spider woman. The black spider legs were almost as thick as her human legs and now touched the ground behind her. The chitinous clicking sound suddenly made sense, and I felt terror fill my stomach as her human body floated off the ground, suspended by the spider legs that attached to her back.
I'm waiting for your answer.
The spider woman said as she tapped one of her rear legs with impatience. She pointed at me with a shiny black chitinous finger. Her hands looked pretty much human, except they were darker than the rest of her arm, and her long fingers ended in sharp points like claws. My body was still numb with shock, and I didn't know if I should run from her spider legs, slap away those wicked fingers, or continue to stare at the beautiful woman parts of her body.
Trell, stop, please.
The third woman said with a begging tone. I still couldn't see girl number 3, but if another spider came out of the shadows, I was sure to die. Except that I couldn't look away from Trell. My mind said run, but the rest of me pretended not to hear. Her body defied the laws of physics and reason as certainly as being teleported to a world of dinos. A sculptor couldn't have made a model with as perfect of proportions as Trell's human body.
Are you done admiring my splendid sexual attributes, boy?
Trell's question reeked of arrogance, and her spider legs relaxed to lower her back onto her human-looking feet.
Would you like to study the curves of my ass next? I assure you there is none finer.
I looked at her breasts once more, mostly so I didn't have to gaze at her spider legs, but also because they were absolutely amazing. God, how did they lift like that without a bra? They seemed even perkier than when I first saw her, and her pink nipples threatened to tear through the soft fabric of her see-through dress. No, I won't call you girls. Sorry. Scream in fear? Or fall in love? My mind was going to split in half if I looked at her another second. I realized I was gawking at her nipples still, so I forced myself to look at her eyes.
I am Trell Idil Iria, Duchess of Family Iria. You should know your place, male. You are unfit to even share this fire with me, let alone stare at my perfect body. What do you have to say for yourself?
Her voice was filled with disgust, and my mind spun as I tried to figure out the correct way to apologize to her. I had been staring at her, but I didn't know how to not stare at her. Thankfully, I was saved a response by the third woman. Her voice was cheery, bright, and I was finally able to turn my attention away from the spider woman.
Don't be scared of her. We're all friendly, I promise. What's your name? Mine's Galmine.
The woman who spoke was a little shorter than Trell and appeared to be completely naked. Her skin was gray and textured with rough stone tiles that seemed to be set on top of the smooth skin. The rocky texture was much rougher across her breasts and in the hot zone between her legs, as if her body created extra layers of the rock-like substance to form coverings and obscure what was beneath. But the alien skin didn't make her body any less sexy. Her figure reminded me of a voluptuous swimsuit model I remembered seeing in the tabloids after dating a popular football player. Like every damned curve of hers was chiseled by a master artist and stuffed with twice the femininity. Fuck me. I hated always classifying girls by their physical features, but a lifetime of operating my man's brain on the default settings and my current level of fatigue left me with little option. She was just as beautiful as the other two women that stood around the fire, and I was once again blushing as I tried to keep my eyes away from her almost nude body. Galmine's shiny silver hair was pulled into a bunch on the back of her head in simple braiding. Her eyes sparkled like green emeralds. I looked into them deeper, and I couldn't actually be certain that they weren't made out of a pair of perfectly cut stones. Her face was a pale grayish color, but the skin appeared much softer than the rest of her body. The wetness of her upturned lips made it easy to see how soft and inviting they'd be. The smiling woman bounced on her feet, and her head tilted slightly to one side in anticipation. I vaguely remembered her asking me a question, but instead of getting her to repeat it, I blurted out the first thing on my mind that didn't involve smoking hot babes. "This is all so crazy. First the abduction, then those men get killed, then dinosaurs.
There were more of you?
Sheila interrupted. Yes, there were 2 others when I arrived here. Actually 3, I guess, but one got killed right away. I turned my head away from her so I wouldn't be distracted by her tight body. The second guy died when some green, feathery dinosaurs ganged up on him and brought him down. The last man was eaten in the jungle. He, helped me escape so I could make my way to where you found me. It was a dubious interpretation of Kelg's final act, but I didn't think it mattered.
3 more would have helped.
Galmine sighed.
Just 3 useless males.
Trell replied from behind the other 2 women.
As Sheila said, more will help us survive.
Galmine countered.
I'm thankful for your friendship, Trell. I love meeting new people, don't you? We should welcome our new friend into our home.
Men serve my needs,
Trell said, matter-of-factly.
The loss of 3 is tragic, but we saved 1 warrior. Galmine did ask for your name.
Sheila turned to me and raised a perfect eyebrow. Oh, right. My manners are off today. My name is Victor, I said with a nod. Trell sniped from nearby.
Victor? Known family name? Ugh. Not only is he a male, but he is of poor stature?
She shook her head at me, and her dark hair swirled around the flawless vanilla skin of her bare shoulders. Oh, sorry. My family name is Shelby? Victor Shelby. I'm a human. My world is called Earth, and the city I come from is called Los Angeles.
I like the shiny metal on your chest,
Galmine said as she pointed across the fire to my shirt. This is my badge. From the Los Angeles County Department for Animal Care and Control, I replied.
That sounds official.
Sheila's eyes glowed from the fire, and she reached a clawed finger out to touch the metal of my badge.
It sounds stupid.
Trell huffed.
I bet he's a garbage collector.
No, I said as I tried to keep my eyes off Trell's nipples and her scary-looking spider legs. I help people with wild animals. It's a good job.
You control the animals?
Galmine asked. Nope, I laughed. I protect and care for the ones we rescue. Trell mumbled while her legs tapped on the cave floor.
Do you have any idea how to combat the flying orange ones?
Sheila asked. What do you mean? I replied, immediately curious.
I arrived 51 nights ago. I study everything here to help me survive. The last cave I was in was much like this one, but little feathered dinosaurs flew in and made nests. Only a week, but they are very powerful when in groups.
I looked around. I didn't see any in there with us. Sheila seemed to know what I was thinking.
Oh, they aren't in this cave. Yet.
She replied with an ominous ending. They're on their way here? I asked. Sheila shrugged and then added.
I believe they moved down the coast. It was the behavior I observed with him earlier. First, it started with scouts. 1 or 2 showed up and poked around the outside of my cave. Over the next 30 sunrises or so, more showed up until there were dozens of them, trying to get in my cave. I fought where I could to keep them out, but they were too many.
Let me guess. You already saw one here, I asked, as if I already knew the answer. Sheila nodded.
A few days ago. They are hard to miss. They are bright orange like this fire, and the wings have plumage of black like the night. They have sharp teeth, but they can also pierce with their razor-sharp beaks. Very hard to fight more than one or two at a time.
Sheila's crazy.
Trell said with a chitter of her claws.
These birds aren't going to come to this cave. Why would they if they have their own cave? If they do come, we have all we need right here to fight dumb little birds. She can defend us at the entryway.
I glanced at Sheila and saw frustration in her eyes. I didn't know how many days she'd spent with Trell, but the beautiful spider-woman was already starting to annoy me, and it had only been 5 minutes. If that first one brings his friends, it'll be just like your last cave, I said. Sheila seemed to brighten a little.
With enough warriors, it can be different than the last home. We could defend the entrance and also take care of the hunting, fishing, and gathering.
How many more would we need? I asked as I shifted my focus to each of the women.
We would need us plus 5, maybe more.
Sheila said after a few seconds of thought.
I'm not doing it.
Trell's words were in sing-song form.
Some of us want to do nothing.
Sheila suggested in an even voice.
Some of us are waiting to be rescued.
Trell added with insistence, and the ebony-haired spider-woman smiled. Her teeth looked like a vampire's with twin fangs where her canine should have been. Who is coming for you, Trell? I asked, with genuine interest. Trell pushed between the two women, and her spider legs carried her clicking across the floor toward me. The sight of her moving made the horror return to my nerves, but I calmed down when she stopped in front of me. She was elevated on her spider legs with her silk dress dangling in midair, and my eyes were level with her nipples. It was almost like she knew that she possessed perfect breasts and was pushing them into my face so I'd be hopelessly distracted. Well, it was working, and I still didn't know if I should be attracted to or terrified of her.
Ahem.
Trell cleared her throat.
My eyes are up here, male.
I forced my neck back so that I could look up at her face. Her eyes were the other alien part of her body. They had no white sclera part to them. They were just balls of black, the same color as her hair. Except the obsidian eyes now reflected the firelight, and the woman looked angry.
A man will address me as Trell Idil Iria, Duchess of Family Iria, not just Trell. I have hundreds of thousands of men wishing to breed with me on my planet. I am a treasure of significant importance. As for rescue, my sisters will cross the stars to find me.
I apologize, Trell Areola. I'm sorry. I began to say, but then I realized I'd Freudian slipped areola, and I began to apologize.
We might be rescued, but in the meantime, we need to survive.
Sheila interrupted my apology to Trell.
If the orange creatures come as I expect, we need to be ready to defend our home. We also need food and water daily. As I said, this is easier with more helpers, such as Victor.
Trell's glare was withering for a moment, but Sheila used her arm to guide the black-haired woman away from me. Trell's voice became less combative at the Catwoman's touch.
Is your skill that of a hunter, male? I might overlook your natural ignorance if you could provide food for me.
I'm not a hunter in the sense you think, but I do pursue animals so I can rescue them. I never stuttered in my life, but Trell broke some part of my speech center whenever I looked at her. Pursuing animals was a glorious description of snaring cats and dogs when they escaped from their cages back at the animal control office. We hired interns who sometimes had bigger hearts than brains, and I'd have to round up the animals they let escape. But I often got to do actual field work and capture animals like Ernie the snake out in the wilds of suburban Los Angeles. I guess that was hunting. The three women looked at me, and they seemed puzzled by my answer. Did I say something wrong? I asked.
What's your skill, silly?
Galmine asked with a cute smile as she playfully tapped her temple next to her right eye. My skill? I asked with confusion. I knew Trell already thought me an idiot, but I didn't want Sheila and Galmine to believe it as well. Trell made like she was pulling her hair out, and her spider legs frantically tapped on the floor of the cave.
He doesn't even know his skill. How are you still alive? Ugh!
I will teach him just as I taught you when we first met, Trell.
Sheila said as she stepped toward me.
Whatever. I would have figured it out without your help.
The other woman huffed.
Examine my eyes.
Sheila said to me as she rested her hands on my shoulders. Her touch caused my heart to start sprinting, and I looked into her cat-like orbs. For a moment, I felt as if I was swimming in a sea of gold, but then she winked at me, twice, with her right eye.
Wink, as I did.
She instructed. I blinked my eyes, but then I realized I needed to just wink the one. I chose the right, same as her. A burst of text appeared in my field of vision. Oh, shit! What is this?